A new report suggested that the UK are £311 billion worse off by 2035 due to leaving the EU. I'm going to read into this more from Sky News, you guys. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is REGANELITE here with an article from Sky News with the headline of Brexit. New report suggests that the UK are £311 billion worse off by 2035 due to leaving the EU. The report came up with a scenario for growth if the UK had stayed inside the EU, and compared it to forecasts for the Office of Budget Responsibility made in March last year. Looking at these comparisons of differences of where we would be if we were in the EU and where we'd be outside the EU, and more and more every day I just keep hearing less and less about people really shouting at the top of their lungs about Brexit's going to work and how Brexit will be beneficial, and Brexit is just is like such a toxic thing now. It is that it is still a white elephant in the room that people don't want to admit that it's actually causing trouble for the UK. That neither Labour nor Conservatives want to admit, but deep down they both know that Brexit was the worst thing that ever happened to the UK, and we can't simply just rejoin the EU. There's lots of complications behind us if we want to be membership. Want to be a member again. So first of all, there would be no rejoining. The rejoining thing is kind of come and gone. So that would be the first thing. So it would be we'd have to apply to join the EU again. That would be the first thing. The second thing is, of course, it would need to be approved by everyone within the EU to have us as membership, and it can easily be vetoed by just one country. So that's another thing as well. Another issue is that it's all well and good if one party is happy for us to join the EU, but if we are still having first past the post system, that means we need both Conservatives and Labour to be on board with it. And right now, there's no sign of Conservatives wanting to undo Brexit in any way, shape, or form. And Keir Starmer hasn't, while he has suggested he wants closer ties with the EU, he has not suggested going back into the single market and the European Union anyway. So that's another reason. The other thing as well is that while there is polls suggesting that the majority of the population want to rejoin, I do think it needs to be the polls and the numbers need to be much higher. I'm talking about at least 70-80%, and we need the vast majority of politicians, like I said, from all sides of the house, to be on excuse me, to be on board for us to rejoin the EU. And then there's the long process of it as well, which will take years and years and years. We're talking 20 years or so before we maybe even longer than that, before we join the EU. This idea that we can come back sooner, people are suggesting, don't understand there's so much complications behind it. I do think one of the biggest things we need to do is to look to rejoin the single market as soon as we possibly can, because rejoining the single market will give us the access that we need to boost our economy and help drive down that inflation number. It will be just so much better for people in both those coming to the UK and those trading within the UK, and those wanting to do business outside from the UK to the EU, and for people who are travelling back and forth sort of thing as well, the travel between the two nations. I think that should be the first priority before going straight in. But obviously everybody has their own ways of how they think. Yeah, we should rejoin the EU. That's my way. I know other people have different suggestions. Some people have this idea that we can do it within a couple of years, which someone suggested, which I thought one or two YouTubers have suggested, and I'm thinking, don't think that's how it works. But I'm glad that Sky News are talking about Brexit in this one, because Brexit is going to, while it's not going to be the subject of debate at the next general election, it is going to be something that people are going to mention. It is something that people are going to talk about. Yes, austerity and what happened in COVID, as among other things, are going to be on the back of minds of people, but there are people who believe that we are better off within the EU than we are out of the EU. So Brexit has costed the UK 140 billion so far, according to new analysis that could see the nation 311 billion pounds worse off by the middle of the next decade, according to a new report. Economics and analysis at Cambridge Econometrics, commissioned by the London Mayor Sadiq Khan, have modelled how the UK economy would have acted if it was still in the European Union. This was compared to data published by the Office of Budget of Responsibility in March 2023, and forecasts based on those data, as those official forecasts have been downgraded as of November last year. The headline findings from the report include lower growth, lower employment, stronger negative impact on investment, imports falling more than expected, and a growing gap between London and the rest of the UK. The report analysis and the gross value added GVA, which is a measure of how value is added by an area through the production of goods and the actions of services. Cambridge Econometrics found that the UK GVA was 2,207 billion in 2023 under current circumstances, and it will be 2,771 billion by 2035. But without Brexit, the organisation states the UK would have had a GVA of 2.37 billion in 2023, and it would have reached 3,082 billion by 2035. This equates to the GVA being 6% lower in 2023 than it would have been without Brexit, and 10.1% lower than in 2035. I'm pretty sure they would have factored in austerity and cost of living to these numbers as well. I'm pretty sure they would have done. So I'm sure some people are thinking that the impact on the war in Ukraine and that. But you have to remember, we are looking at specifically at the United Kingdom, not so much the world. But I understand the point that people were making in the comments that the world economy, world events have also had an impact on in the UK, and there's no question that would have an impact in the UK. But we're trying to digest what this report is trying to digest, guys, is how the differentiations would have been with Brexit happened or Brexit not happened, pretty much. It found that by 2035, the UK is anticipated to have 3 million fewer jobs, 32% lower investment, 5% lower exports, and 16% lower imports than it would have had if the UK had not left the EU. Cambridge Econometrics also found that Brexit is expected to cause the productivity gap between London and the rest of the UK to widen further. The scenario in which the UK in the EU used an E3ME model, which is used transnationally for forecasting. It includes data from the UN, the OECD, the World Bank, the IMF, the ONS, and Eurostat. The report said it tried to isolate and subtract the Brexit effect from factors like trade and investment from the main scenario, which is said effectively modelling a scenario in which other factors, for example the COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine, took place, but Brexit did not. Shamari Patel, Principal Economics at Cambridge Econometrics, said, "Our study reveals that London's economy would have grown faster if Brexit hadn't taken place. Looking ahead, we project that Brexit will continue to have an impact on the UK and London economies in the medium term." Mr. Khan is set to use the report to make a case for closer relationships with Europe on Thursday at the Mansion House. Well, by the time of this, he would have already made that case. The London Mayor said said now that it is now obvious that Brexit isn't working, blaming the hardline Brexit that we've ended up with. Yeah, the deal that we got was really, really crap. You look back in hindsight with the one that Theresa May had on the plate. If we had gotten that deal, the impact would have been far less, because we would have still had ties in the European single market. Mr. Khan added the cost of Brexit crisis can only be solved if we take a mature approach and if we open to improving our trading relationship with our European neighbours. I agree with the Shadow Foreign Secretary David Lammy, who has said we urgently need to build a closer relationship with the EU. We need a general election. With a general election union, Brexit will be an issue used to attack Labour and its leader Sir Keir Starmer, who backed a second referendum. I don't know about that, but the Conservatives will do anything to smear Sir Keir Starmer anyway at the general election, one way or another. But it is true that he did, under Jeremy Corbyn in 2019, did back a second referendum. However, my position on Jeremy Corbyn is that he wasn't. He's not somebody I really want to go into, if I'm honest, guys. But what I will say is that his policies was good, but his policies were interesting. But himself and the whole anti-Semitism thing, he handled it so badly, and his attitude towards it is what made me not vote Labour at the last general election. But that's another point. That's another story. But interesting numbers to say the least, but also not surprising, especially especially when you've seen the damage that Brexit has had in the country. I don't think anyone should be surprised by that. And it's going to continue to get worse, as time passes on. But like I said, it's not something we can fix overnight. But I do believe, and I know people don't have that same, but I do believe that Labour will try to bring closer ties with the EU. Not so much to Brexit, but try to bring a closer ties, because they know if they want to fix the economy, if they want to stay in power, they've got to show it. And without working with the EU guys, it's not helping us. This whole blank ignoring them and not resolving issues is not helping them. It's not helping us. It's not helping anybody. Being shut off from our partners next door is just ridiculous, guys. It needs to change. And there's going to be so many more reports and damnations, and people and businesses are worse off ever since. There are so many negatives for Brexit, and I don't. The only positives are for those outside the EU. For those outside the EU, outside the EU, those who have benefited are those who are not British, those who are not from the UK. There's this perception that they're also trying to turn the UK into pariah state, those who wanted Brexit and those who wanted the hardest of Brexit. I can't see us going down that route overall as a people. But this will rumble on. Brexit, like I said, it's a topic that will not go away, and people keep saying it's done, get over it. Well, no, it's not done. No, I'm not getting over it. And no, my children's and your children's are worse off because of it. So don't tell me to get over it when we voted to make our lives worse, our people's lives worse. We are going to keep talking about it until we return or join the European Union, because I'd like to think that in my lifetime we will be back within the EU. At least that's my hope anyway. So what do you guys make of this report? The suggestion that £311 billion worse off. Are you surprised by these figures? Let me know what you guys honestly think so far in the comments section down below with regards to Brexit. Hit the like button, be greatly appreciated. Share this across social media and hit that bell notification icon so you'll be notified when I upload another video. And if you want to financially support me, you can do so by joining YouTube membership for just 99p or joining me on Patreon. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.